You're listening to Renewing Hope on Ave Maria Radio. To call in with a question or comment, dial 877-573-7825. That's 877-573-7825.
Welcome back to Renewing Hope. I'm Mike Vasquez, your guide on this journey. Are you one of the 3 Americans being impacted by substance abuse? To join our conversation today, call 877-573-7825. We're fortunate today to be joined by Dr. Charles Wadley, board-certified addiction physician, as we discuss why do people use drugs. To learn more about Renewing Hope or to subscribe to our podcast, visit us at our website, renewing-hope.com. Also, sign up to receive reflections on our website on the daily Mass reading by email, and you can always send us your prayer intentions, which will be offered at daily Masses here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers as intentions by the Sisters of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, Mother of God. The sisters are in residence here at the St. Gregory Campus Convent. Also on our website, you can download a prayer asking St. Gregory the Wonder Worker, the patron saint of desperate causes, to intervene on your behalf. Visit us at renewing-hope.com, follow us on Twitter at Renewing Your Hope, or like us on Facebook at Renewing Hope Radio. You know, the National Institute on Drug Abuse researched why people do use drugs, and they found 4 core reasons. The first one was to be happy or satisfied. People, if they're just in the dumps and they feel like if they had a drink, it'll get them out of that, or given that satisfaction that they're just not getting from the daily pressures of life. The second one was just to feel better, and to feel better took a couple different methods. One is the fact that you're just having physical pain, and that drug or that alcohol made that pain go away. Or actually, we see this every day at St. Gregory, is as people use opiates or heroin, they actually use the drug to make the pain of withdrawal subside. So they've lost that benefit of the euphoria, but they actually continue to use drugs to make sure that the side effects are kept at bay. And it's actually the side effects of withdrawal that keeps them addicted. A lot of times people use drugs also just to do better, either from a performance aspect or from a athletic aspect. So if somebody's got a big test they want to cram for, so they'll take an amphetamine to keep up, to stay up and continue to study, or obviously performance-enhancing drugs that we read all too much about. And then there's the one that everybody faces as they grow up, peer pressure. I'm at a party, somebody hands me a beer, and to be accepted, I go ahead and start. So those are really there's lots of reasons, as we'll discuss later in the show, but those are 4 of the key ones. But it's interesting how the National Institute on Drug Abuse has found their reasons for people using drugs and how closely in line they are if you look at those reasons, how the Catholic Catechism teaches us, and it deals with these issues directly. Actually, in the Catechism in paragraph 1718, the Beatitudes are the response to the natural desire for human happiness. The Catechism goes on to say, we all want to live happily, and in the whole human race there's no one who does not assent to this proposition. However, the National Institute on Drug Abuse does stop short of the real answer. The parallel stops there, because the Catechism really shows the real answer of why we pursue satisfaction, and that we can obtain satisfaction through God alone, and God alone satisfies. And that's really the difference of what we'll really delve into today on how you actually use that benefit of the Catechism so that you can find that happiness and that satisfaction. However, in our society today, satisfaction typically comes from our living, working, and relationship environments. When we don't get natural satisfaction, human nature, again, drives us to seek satisfaction, and if we're not well grounded in our virtues, I call it the Beatitudes in action, we settle on artificial satisfaction or that misconception of good, sin as we all know it. You know, the Beatitudes tell us that our moral conscience is ingrained in our hearts to do good and avoid evil, and no human would truly choose pure evil. Sin's usually the misconception of good. If you think about it, little Jimmy cheats on his test, not because he's evil. He cheats because he wants the praise of his parents, and by doing well on his test, he'll obtain that praise. I take that beer at that party because I want to be accepted by a peer group. Those are all misconceptions of good, not sin. And so as we find that, you have to look at those things that you're doing. Are they truly virtue-based, or are they just the misconception of good? And really that helps to give you that first step on that path to coming back to living a virtuous life and really getting back to finding true happiness. You're listening to Renewing Hope on Ave Maria Radio today, and we'll be discussing why people take drugs, and with board-certified addiction physician Dr. Charles Wadley. To join our conversation, the number to call with us is 877-573-7825. Again, to join our conversation with any of your questions or comments, 877-573-7825. You know, we've talked a lot about substance abuse and why people use drugs. We have a lot to talk about today, so let's kind of jump right into it with our guest, board-certified addiction physician, Dr. Charles Wadley. Dr. Wadley is a devout Catholic who, with his wife, Marianne, has 11 children. God bless you, Chuck. And Dr. Wadley, could you maybe give our listeners a little of your background?
Well, God bless you too, Mike, on this virgin voyage of vice to virtues today. It's this Renewing Hope radio show. My background started with pharmacy. In this earthly sojourn when I finally made it to college and did undergraduate in pharmacy, and then went on to medical school and chose to get into working more with people and getting to know them, you know, through their problems and tribulations. I did residency in psychiatry and ultimately became board certified in psychiatry, as well as sub-certification, if you will, in addictions. Like you, Mike, I've traveled nearly 30 years in the medical arena. You know, you might recall that our work crossed paths at a Corpus Christi procession. So we kind of have that Catholic flow in our blood, if you will. It was about 4 to 5 years ago when you told me of your endeavor in developing this program for substance-related treatment. And having been the medical director in a variety of clinical and administrative settings, dealing with mental health and substance abuse and substance dependence, and being involved with treating the withdrawal and detox activities over the years, this seemed like a great opportunity to use those services in the context of Catholic programming. It seemed to be a natural progression and something, it's too bad I didn't start earlier.
Well, I was discussing earlier how the National Institute on Drug Abuse describes why people use drugs. And I was just wondering, with your years of experience, what are your thoughts on why people use drugs?
Well, you touched upon quite a few earlier on, but I wanted to talk today more so maybe about the psychosocial, spiritual aspects, given, you know, our focus of trying to have that core of seeking Christ, God, in our programming, at least offering and making that available. But there's a lot of things to consider with the onset of drug use. But you know, with the you mentioned earlier about satisfaction. I think you used the word happiness in there, and I want to start with that because it's kind of an elusive pursuit. You know, everyone wants to be happy. The reality of human existence and our worldly condition is that, you know, happiness remains, as I said, somewhat elusive. It's almost intangible at times. Drugs are just another avenue in pursuit of that happiness, and I would contend we should strive for joy, not just happiness.
So when you describe it that way, Dr. Wadley, what do you really see as the difference between happiness and joy?
Well, again, happiness is elusive. It tends to be fleeting. Joy tends to be fixed and more permanent. Example, I recently attended a collegiate football game, and those that know me were kind of shocked that I would even go to a collegiate football game, but it was an opportunity, and I thought it'd be kind of fun. And, you know, assume for a moment I'm into the college thing. I want to see my team win, and I wanted to see the team win. They didn't that day, but had they won, that would have fostered some happiness. But the real joy was the experience of the event, going with others, hanging out, having some camaraderie, you know, dealing with the crowds and just being there. That's joy. That's something I'm going to remember. I'm not going to remember the score of the game, how bad they lost, or how well they had won, had they won, which would have been, again, that happiness. It's the other part that you want to seek, the joy.
So when you look at it that way, though, can't happiness eventually lead to joy?
It certainly could. There's no reason it can't with enough experience over time. But like the pursuit of happiness from the use of substances, it's short-lived. Again, it's fleeting. Consider your many encounters with an individual or frequently with parents of children, your family, friends, in my practice as well in psychiatry. They all desire this happiness for oneself, or in the case for that child. I just want my child to be happy. But simply wanting that happiness that is sought through these short-sighted gratification, only to find that the happiness is, as I indicated, elusive. It's fleeting. It's a moving target. You're never satiated. it's better that the person or the parent forego that indulgent, unsustainable happiness for joy-filled experiences in preparation for what we hope will be our ultimate bliss. But when you inquire as to the basis of happiness, it is the here and now, today. Typically, parents want to see their children not suffering. They want them to be free from the pains that the parents themselves have experienced over time, and through that wisdom want to forego that for their children. But that's not reality.
Dr. Wadley, we've got a caller on line one that has a friend with kids that just started drinking, and they want to go out to the bars and had a few questions for us. Let's go ahead and take our caller on line one.
Hello.
Hi, this is Mike with Renewing Hope.
Good morning.
Hi. Good morning. I'm just driving through Iowa, and I happen to hear your show. And I just have a question. I have a close friend, and she was always just an occasional drinker, and she has school, or she has school-age kids that are like in elementary, and her and her husband have a pretty close marriage, but just over the past couple of years, she's been starting to hang out with women that have been going through a divorce, and she started going to the bars with these gals, and now she's becoming kind of a heavy drinker, and her husband's really concerned, and her friends are very concerned, and she doesn't get home until 1 or 2 in the morning, and we're concerned that she might get a drunk driving, or might hurt herself, or something might just we just don't know what to do.
So, Dr. Wadley, what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's not a good situation. It's good to hear, though, that it sounds like they have a good support system. I mean, the fact that you're calling and you mentioned the husband is concerned, you alluded to the possibility of an OWI or getting hurt, and those are factors. I think more importantly, what's it doing to those relationships? Be that with you, be that with the husband. You mentioned she has kids. How old are her kids?
They're like one's in first grade and one is in third grade.
Yeah. Well,
so they're quite small.
Yeah, that's tough on them, and hopefully she's trying to get up with them in the morning and help them out. If you come home like that every night, that's going to be difficult. Who's talked to her about it? What have people said to her? Have they expressed that concern?
Well, there's a lot of us that have come and talked to her, and her and her husband are getting some counseling, but they're not actually going to a Christian counselor, and that's kind of fearful also.
And I was just going to say, one of the things that if you think about what we were just talking about earlier is the fact that if you don't get your satisfaction from your living, working, or relationship environments, you really start to look for artificial satisfaction. And I almost get a sense that there's something missing in her life that she's trying to replace with some art. Obviously, in this case, alcohol is providing that artificial satisfaction, that misconception of good that she's in pursuit of, and she's lost sight of the fact of what it's doing to her. And it's almost like she is acting out and considering unreasonable things, and somebody needs to really make her aware of that. And hopefully this counselor is doing that. But again, it's something that it seems like it may take a concerned friend, or because maybe her husband, he's aware of it but hasn't been successful in trying to alleviate that. But get her to really search into what's missing in her life, what's she really searching for, because it seems to me like she's searching for artificial gratification.
Well, yeah, that's what we all do. Some other pragmatic themes potentially are to make sure whoever that counselor is, and a Christian counselor would be great, but you can't always find those depending on your locale. But make sure the counselor knows about this issue. You mentioned she and her husband are getting counseling. I hope there is a couples component to it, marital counseling. And not knowing what their background is religiously, spiritually, certainly a direction there would be of value as well. Do they go to church together? Do they pray together? Do they have that type of intimacy in their relationship? And if not, that may be what Mike's alluding to. Something's adrift, something's amiss, and needs to be assessed more.
Well, thanks for the call, and I'm sure she appreciates the fact that you care about her enough, and we'll all pray for her to find that direction back to her virtues. Dr. Wadley, as we take even that call and the things that we were talking about, we're really talking about the difference between immaturity, looking for instant gratification, and deferred gratification of mature behavior. And it's really not age-based, is it? It's really based on just somebody's personality. How's that come about to where we do that?
Well, maturity, a lot of us think of a mature person as being somebody who has more years under their belt, but that's not necessarily the case. Maturity, in the sense of moral maturity or making good decisions, wisdom, isn't necessarily chronological. So we need to, be aware of that. If we look at situations for opportunity to develop maturity, and that's what's necessary, and how those opportunities are molded will help become that mature moral wisdom type person. Let me just start with a simple example of a little child, say a 4 to 6 year old, and you're shopping in the grocery store with them, and I'll say with their mother. Unfortunately, to the mother's dismay, they stroll into the candy aisle. The child's eyes are wide open. They're in candy kingdom. The kid's scanning the top, the row from the top to bottom. They're running up and down the aisle. Well, they're grabbing this. They're tugging on mom's slacks. They're escalating with their pleas, demands, maybe screaming. And, there's several options here. And this is where you have the opportunity to develop that maturity over time. Several things she could do. She could give her something, give that child something to eat or whatever they're after, and that would make them happy, although it'd be very temporary. And they get in the next aisle and they're going to be dealing with it again. She could race her cart down and out of the aisle, but that's avoiding an opportunity for mature development, and it teaches people to run from issues. She could agree to buy an item or two with a discussion about eating that item once in the car, at home, or after dinner. Which option is going to avail a more lasting happiness, broaching that joy we talked about? Which is going to help foster control? Which is going to lend to hope in the future?
That's a great example, and we've been talking here today on Renewing Hope with Dr. Charles Wadley. When we come back, we're going to take a break, and we'll be discussing why people take drugs again, and the barriers to getting treatment, and what's the impact of maturity and immaturity. And are you one of the 3 people being impacted by substance abuse? Again, you can join our conversation after the break at 877-573-7825 on Ave Maria. This is Renewing Hope, and again, 877-573-7825. We'll be right back.